You're listening to the Innovation Made Easy podcast with Chiara, episode number 43. Welcome to the Innovation Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Chiara, ex-corporate leader turned executive coach and speaker. I'm here today to unfold insights of leadership wisdom and personal development to inspire you to achieve success both at work and in life. Are you ready to create your own success story? Then let's dive in. Hello, my friends. This week, I'm going to talk about a subject that is very close to my heart. Another subject. Most of the subjects that I'm covering on this podcast are things that I really care about. And it's about meetings. And in particular, the fact that we are in a lot of organization and drowning in meetings, and I feel like we have lost the opportunity to challenge because we are in this hamster wheel and there is so many meetings and you get invited to meetings and by default you just accept them. So I would like to challenge this and give you some food for thoughts in how you can challenge the meetings and how you can challenge the thinking. And hopefully, given also some of the elements that I've given you before this episode, like not caring what other people think and being your own boss and those type of insights, that you will feel comfortable really challenging this approach for the good of your business, for the good of your time and your productivity and the effectiveness of you as individuals and you as teams. So, because I feel that there hasn't been really much of an education around meetings. It's not that there's something that we cover when we study, or there's not something that maybe we have an induction when we join a company that they tell us what is the policy, what is the good practice in the company in terms of meetings. This is something that is given by default, as if you would know how to run a successful meetings. And the reality is that what we see from the outcomes of ineffective meetings everywhere, clearly there is a lack. So what I would like to fundamentally focus on today is that a meeting is meant to come out to deliver an outcome. And so when you are thinking of any type of meeting, you want to make sure that if you are the organizer of the meeting, that you're very clear on what the outcome of that meeting is. And if you are invited to a meeting, that the label of this meeting, that the agenda of this meeting clearly states what the outcome of that meeting will be. So to frame this, I was thinking a little bit around what are the different themes that are crucial and that call for a meeting, that are justifying to call for a meeting. And I landed on 6 different reasons that we could look at them. I always like to dissect things with the fundamental questions of the who, the how, the what, the why, the when, because this is the way that I've learned to structure the thinking, and it's really useful, and it actually applies here as well. So I have identified 6 common reasons to have meetings that make sense to have a meeting, major areas, and of course, we want to keep in mind that sometimes meetings can cover multiple reasons, but there will always be a primary reason, a primary purpose that you have for the meeting, and then there will be additional, maybe secondary goals and objectives or outcome you wanna have. So you want to be clear when you're preparing for a meeting, when you're even preparing to send out an agenda or an invite, that you really sit with yourself for a few minutes and think it through. What is the main purpose of this meeting? And now this is really interesting because sometimes in corporate we have recurring meetings. And then it becomes more challenging, if to kind of sit really and think it through, because you feel like you're departing from the wrong perspective. You're departing from the fact that, well, I have this slot already booked in my calendar. What could I use this time for? And I think it's a little bit dangerous to look at it in this way. But anyway, let's dive into this sixth reason, and I'm curious to hear then your thoughts around it. And just before I dive into the first reason, I want to remind and really stress the fact that if you're aware, if you're knowledgeable and deliberate around what is the primary reason of this meeting, what is it that I want to accomplish, the reality is that it's going to be so helpful for you to structure the meeting, to design the session, to design how much time you want to spend on the different subjects, and a lot of other things. I'm going to come to that later on, but it also really is going to be helpful to identify who you want to have in the meeting versus just inviting people by their title, for instance. So the first type of meeting that is a good reason to have a meeting is a decision meeting. And here the goal is simple and straightforward. You want to come out of it that you have made at least one, if not more, decisions. And you actually want to be already aware ahead of time. How many decisions do we want to take? How many subjects do we want to discuss to come out with a decision? Not only you want to come out with a decision, but also the decision needs to be clear and understood by everybody attending this meeting. Because what you want is then that everyone can take appropriate action right after this meeting. So decisions, that there is, and also you want to think about, and how do you want to be taking the decision? Is it going to be by voting? Is it going to be, what are the rules of the game? Is the majority going to be enough, or do I need consensus? What do we want to decide? What are the elements of the decision that I don't want to leave to the chance? So if you know that the purpose of the meeting is to make a specific decision around, for instance, approving a revised budget, or having a decision about a team member, or hiring, that meeting, then you structure the meeting accordingly to making sure that you will be able to deliver on your promise to yourself and to the team members. So first type of meeting, making decisions. The second type of meeting is a brainstorming meeting. And here the idea is that you are coming together, and this is actually a really nice way, right, to use the wisdom of the team. You want to come together in a meeting room, virtual or physical these days, and you want to generate ideas. You want to generate different alternative solutions. But it could also be that you want to list questions, right? What are all the questions that we need to answer on a specific subject matter? So the idea is to really extract the wisdom of the team. You're sitting there and you ask everyone to come up with ideas. And if you know that the outcome is a list of 3 to 5 ideas, for instance, on a specific subject that you want the input of the team, then you will structure the meeting accordingly, right? You might even structure the location differently. If you want to have a brainstorm, Zoom, of course, is a little bit more tricky, but maybe the time of the day or the time of the week, right? So you could decide and adjust and flex to make sure that you really set the people up to success for this meeting. Now, sometimes brainstorm meetings go hand in hand with decision meetings. So the purpose is not just to generate idea. That might be the first part of the meeting, but then the second part could be the decision making, right? So you're going to be narrowing down. So this is really interesting to be framing it. Am I just collecting ideas and hunching because I'm going to have a follow-up meeting when we're going to look at those ideas again with fresh eyes and we're going to then narrow them down? Or do I want to do them all in one go? We brainstorm and also we narrow it down. So having the time to think about it, what is the best way? How complex is the problem? How informed am everybody about the problem we want to discuss, and therefore are they going to be in a position to not only brainstorm but also to narrow down and decide? It's really an interesting exercise for you to do in preparation, if you are the leader of the meeting, to do in preparation of the meeting. So that was the second. So we had decision meetings and we have brainstorming meeting. The third type of meeting is what I call more of a production meeting, productivity meeting. And here I'm thinking of meetings where it's really a working session. So the outcome of this meeting could be progressing on a specific work. So for instance, if you're working on the brand equity of a brand, you might want to sit together and work up the elements to, what is the essence of the brand? What are we here? What is the purpose of the brand? So it could be really so it's not a brainstorming, but it's really more of a specific, tailored, narrow working progress on a specific subject. So this type of meetings will include activities such as, maybe you want to create a mood board. Some things you will be able to do ahead of the meeting. Some things you want to have the meeting, happening in the meeting itself. So, it could be another type of exercise where you want to use this type of meeting, production meeting, is if you're fine-tuning a strategy document. So you're coming in already with an input, you might have collected already some inputs from the individuals, and now you're coming together to consolidate and finalize so that you can move on, and that document then is ready to be completed. So the outcome then also be realistic around what can I expect at the end, how finalized will then this product be, and really not lowering the bar too much to saying, then I can revise it myself. No, think about it. Think about what is it that I can expect. How can we make sure that I motivate and inspire the people to come to the meeting with the desire that we're going to be landing the strategy document, then we're going to land the brand design, then we're going to land the advertising. So really, the more you're clear when you're preparing, and also then when you are inviting the people, the more people will be coming in prepared mentally, but also maybe with tools already developed that can contribute to the success of the meeting. The next type of meeting is a planning meeting. And in planning meetings, you're establishing a clear action plan, a clear next step. So this can be very detailed and can result in specific actions ready for everyone individual in the team to execute. But it's also going to be it could be approaches for the team to take the work forward. So you want to use this kind of meetings to make sure that everything is in place for the project to move forward. So this planning meeting is basically aligning, for example, it could be aligning the different functions in a Gantt chart, right? So instead of just presenting and sending it via email, this is the planning, this is overall planning. So this task can only start when this first task is finished. You really want to make sure that your assumptions are solid and sound for everybody in the team. So I know that sometimes these type of meetings are happening just via email. You go back and forth. But it might be worth actually sitting together and revising those action plans, because there might be things that you maybe as a project manager you might not know, and you might not want to discuss this just individually with the owner of the task. You want maybe everybody else to also be aware of what are the limitations. Now, I don't want I'm not suggesting here that the meeting should drag into the tremendous detail of all the different activities of a project, but I'm saying that there is a value in really ensuring that everything is in place and that the team is informed of what is expected timeline, what are the next steps, what is the deliverables by when, and are we setting ourselves up for success? What are the critical, because this is also going to help you highlight where the risks are, so you can know ahead of time where the biggest risk lie. So the planning meetings can actually be quite fast if they are prepared ahead of time and everybody have done their own homework, but are still quite interesting in terms of the outcome you could have. So the outcome here is really a much more solid planning that is realistic and that takes into account the risks that the individual activities might incur, and that you're already planning ahead of time on how to deal with those. The next type of meeting is an alignment meeting. And now, alignment meetings are about making sure that everybody has the same understanding of a specific subject matter. Something needs to be quite complex, right? So you want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to talk through the information, the situation, and you're landing on a final shared understanding. This is not about just presenting. And just to open the brackets, presenting information is rarely a good enough reason to have a meeting, right? And instead, this is often the case where the meeting just focuses around somebody presenting something that could be just sent over email. Here is about, you might have something to present, and it is as an input for a discussion. So you're going to demand from everyone how they understand that information. And you're going to be getting their input around, does this make sense? Do we have all the same interpretation of this information? Can we move forward, assuming that we're all on the same page? So this is really the alignment meeting, where you're going into this meeting with the objective that the outcome should be, I'm going to get an alignment of all the participants on this specific subject. I'm going to be very specific around what do I want alignment on, which part of the project, of the decision, of the discussion I want an alignment on, and how I'm going to get that. What information I can send ahead of time for people to prepare, right? Instead of wasting time for you to present and do a show. Sometimes that's not necessary. You can record yourself and send a nice video presentation with applications like Loom or other similar ones. Even Canva these days allows you to record your presentation and send it. So you can do that ahead of time so people can prepare and come and really use that time in a useful manner. Unless, of course, you want to have conversation and discussion around every slide, then it's a different thing. But you can still do it. You can still go back to the presentation and just send it as a pre-read. I think pre-read or table read are always a good idea for people to prepare ahead of the time for the meetings. So this is alignment meetings. And then the final type of meeting is actually about relationship and connection. This is a type of meeting that are really about building stronger relationships. And I'm sure that these days a lot of team leaders are finding creative ways to replace the offsite meetings that during this COVID time we're not allowed to have, but still keep the essence, because those are important. The objective here, the outcome of this meeting, is that everybody should feel more connected. And it's so important to be connected to your co-workers, to the people you're working with every day. Build stronger relationships, build more entertaining and stronger and fun relationships. It's so, I love that. I think it's so important in your workplace. So it could be just team building exercises. It could be retreat. It could be specific maybe training that you go and do all together. But it could also be that you're doing with a client, right? Or you could do it with a partner company that you know you're working very close together, and where there is a need and a wish to build stronger relationship. So then you know very clearly that the outcome of that meeting is connection, is coming out of that meeting being stronger together, feeling that we can open up to each other, that we can talk to each other, we can call up each other when we have a need, that we can be authentic, that we know each other better. So those meetings are very important. I mentioned this earlier, but let me state it here again and maybe stronger. Meetings will usually have one primary purpose, but often they will have actually more than one objective. You want to have more than one outcome. For example, you might have a meeting about making a decision, but you also want to take the opportunity to help the team connect. So the first objective is something you will state very clearly and openly to everyone in the agenda. The second is more your internal objective, right? The fact that you want the team to connect. And therefore you might not spell it out as an objective on the agenda. But this will help you shape and frame the meeting. So when you're sitting there preparing for the meeting and you want to look at, okay, what are the outcomes? Is there just one outcome? Are there more outcomes of these 6 that we just went through? And if I have more outcomes, how do I make them blend in a way that it makes sense without wasting anybody's time and really keeping the pace and keeping the energy going in the meeting? So these are all considerations that if you are really sitting with yourself and asking yourself those questions, you might be able to answer them and therefore prepare them. So, for example, in the case that I just gave, if you have those 2 objectives, the fact that you have this secondary, more your own objective of increasing connection will make you make different choices. So for example, you might include an introduction that gives the chance to the team participants, the meeting participants, to do a check-in and share something about them, right? If you want to create that connection. If that's not part of the agenda, you might not want to do that. If you just want to hold a decision-making meeting, for example, then you don't want to be doing the check-in. So it's so interesting that we are shaping the meeting, not just by default, not let's just add the check-in meetings in all the meetings just because it sounds cool, right? Is that a part of the objective? Is that appropriate? Or does it just going to be eating up time and maybe set the people up in the wrong setting with the wrong mindset? So it's so interesting when we spend actually time to distill what is it, the outcome that I want to obtain from this meeting, how I'm going to structure it, how I'm going to organize it. Really, really interesting. Here, I'm going to also give you another really interesting tip that I was reading somewhere about. And it is about thinking about the meeting in terms of nouns and not verbs. I think it's really fascinating if just pause and think about it for a second. Because when you start with a noun instead of a verb, it will be much easier for you to evaluate whether you have achieved a specific result or not. It could be tempting for you to say the purpose of the meeting is to discuss, right? The verb discuss something, or to brainstorm options, or to share information, right? If you're thinking the first thing that you might, come up with, okay, I want to have this meeting to have a brainstorming. But the point is that you're not, at the end of the meeting, you're not going to turn to the team and say, okay, did we brainstorm, or did we share? That would be kind of awkward, right? Instead, you will probably ask, did this process, did the brainstorm get us to the list of ideas that we wanted to get to as a purpose of this meeting? Did the sharing of the information allow us to come to alignment? The sharing, not did we share. It's such a subtle difference of the way of asking the question, but it's so incredibly important, right? So when we start with a noun, the desired outcome for that specific activity will be much clearer. So let's say the meeting was about brainstorming, and when you reach the end, you do not have a list of ideas, a specific list of X amount of ideas, and instead you have maybe too many wild, crazy ideas. You will be aware that you did not achieve your desired outcome. You might have had a fantastic conversation and had a great time and talked through some problems, but without that outcome of the promised desired outcome that you had agreed in the beginning, which is delivering, landing 3 ideas, you will have missed the opportunity. You will probably leave the meeting feeling excited and accomplished, but the reality is that you will still have work to be done. You want to focus on the result, on the outcome of the meeting, even in the invitation. I mentioned this earlier already. You don't want an invitation to discuss budget conversation, right? That's too generic, and it doesn't specify what is the outcome you wanna land on. So think about it in terms of the outcome. So for instance, it could be, if we're talking about revised budget, for example, it could be about we want to finalize or we want to approve the budget. So the outcome is we're going to leave the meeting when we have approved the budget, finalized it and approved it. Then everyone comes into the meeting intending to leave with a clear decision. You clearly know what you want to achieve in that meeting. In this specific case, the budget is accepted and everybody can act upon that. I actually do that. I think I talked about it previously in the podcast. I do that with my time slots as well. Even when I have my own time without any meeting with anybody, instead of writing the task and the activity, I write down what the outcome of that activity I want it to be. That gives me a much better vision and view of what I want to obtain, and it gives me more opportunity to explore different routes to land to that outcome. And also it gives me a sense check at the end of that time slot. Did I achieve what I meant to achieve? Was that time slot, was that meeting a success for me according to what I intended to do with that time or not? So the power of this exercise also lies in the fact that it helps you distinguish between who should be attending the meeting, and also identify those that you just want to be informed. So what you want to do is that once you start with what is the goal of this meeting, or what is the outcome of the meeting, right? What do I want to come out of the meeting with? Who has the knowledge or the perspective to contribute to the purpose of this meeting? And also then, who has the authority to make decision if that's something that is relevant for that specific meeting? So you can really look at the invite list on the perspective of, this is the role of this person, this is the role of this other person. It's so powerful to really even assign those roles, explicitly or not, ahead of the meeting. So everybody comes into the meeting understanding what their role is, what the expectations from those meetings is. You want to really avoid having people just sitting there and warming the chair. that is not a good time, a good use of their time, but it's going to drain the energy out of your meeting. The first few times, people might question your choices to only invite these key people or to a meeting and exclude some others. So some people may feel you've intentionally left them out. And yet at the same time, others actually might secretly or even openly thank you for not taking up their time on their calendars. Because no one really wants to sit through another meeting just because you felt you had to include them or you had to invite them. So you want to really limit the meeting invites to the critical contributors. And if the culture of the company doesn't make this approach acceptable, the way around, at least in the beginning, could be that you talk to people individually and you explain why you don't think their time is, inviting them to the meeting is a good use of their time. Or the other thing you can also do is add participants as optional to the meeting. And then, again, either you take it up individually with them or you leave it up to them to decide if their attendance is worthwhile. I still prefer that you actually take the courage to go with one-to-one to the people that you've put in optional, saying this is more for your information. You're not called to attend the meeting, and in that have a courtesy call with them to explain the purpose of the meeting and the reason you chose the other people, and that you will be keeping them informed about the outcome, because there might be stakeholders or there might be people important enough in the projects to be informed about the outcome. So you can really do that. Now, I'm going to link in the show notes a link to a site on the HBR website where you can actually calculate the cost of meetings. There is a cost of meeting calculator. It's a few years old, but it's still up there. I checked and it still works. And I think it's really about restating the fact that there are way too many meetings, and meetings have a cost, because every time you're doing certain activities, you're not doing another activity. So yes, by all means, let's have the meetings that are purposeful and that have a really clear outcome that you want to discuss in the meeting. But if that's not the case, let's not block people's calendar just because this is the culture of just sitting in meetings all the time. So meetings are ideal for issues that have high complexity, and when you want to make sense of something all together as a team. It's about creating the space for people to think collectively, to listen to one another, to connect the dots and shape reality. They are a fantastic way to extract the wisdom of the team. And that we want to give back this bigger purpose to the meetings, because all those bad meetings have been damaging the reputation of meetings. And so we're not celebrating the meetings in the way we should be, and instead we're just drowning the idea of another meeting with another shallow agenda, with another shallow outcome, and another non-follow-up of the outcome that is going to come out of this meeting. And really, if the meeting is just about informing participant or stakeholder, just skip it. Record a video and send it through. I can understand that people don't want to read long presentations or long documents, so tell a story. Let's use all these virtual, beautiful, digital solutions we have at our hands and leverage them also in large corporations where we can clean up our agendas from time eaters like unnecessary meetings. So I'm really excited to hear your thoughts around these 6 types of meetings, and looking forward to any comments. Leave them to me on my website. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye. Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast, I really encourage you to check out my homepage at www.chiaracovone.com and get access to my free morning routine resource. Because when you start out with the right mindset, the right body preparation, and the right emotional stability, you will be able to face anything that life throws at you. So don't wait any longer. Get access to this resource and start implementing my tips to have a fantastic day every day. Thank you.